Ithaca presents Culture, A New World History, written by Martin Puchner and read by John Sackville. Preface. How culture works. Here's one view of culture. The Earth is populated by groups of humans, and these groups are held together by shared practices. Each of these cultures, with their distinct customs and arts, belongs to the people born into it, and each must be defended against outside interference. This view assumes that culture is a form of property, that culture belongs to the people who live it. One advantage of this view is that it encourages people to cherish their own heritage. It also gives them resources for defending it, as when museums are pressured to return objects acquired under dubious circumstances to their rightful owners. The assumption that culture can be owned has a surprisingly broad coalition of advocates, including nativists invested in their national traditions and those hoping to stop cultural appropriation by declaring one group's cultural property off-limits to outsiders. There is a second view of culture that rejects the idea that culture can be owned. This view is exemplified by Shenzang, the Chinese traveller who went to India and brought back Buddhist manuscripts. It was embraced by Arab and Persian scholars who translated Greek philosophy. It was practiced by countless scribes, teachers and artists who found inspiration far outside their local culture. In our own time, it has been endorsed by Wole Soyinka and many other artists working in the aftermath of European colonialism. Culture, for these figures, is made not only from the resources of one community, but also from encounters with other cultures. It is forged not only from the lived experience of individuals, but also from borrowed forms and ideas that help individuals understand and articulate their experience in new ways. When seen through the lens of culture as property, these figures might appear to be intruders, appropriators, even thieves. But they pursued their work with humility and dedication because they intuited that culture evolves through circulation. They knew that false ideas of property and ownership impose limits and constraints, leading to impoverished forms of expression. This book is not a celebration of the great books, nor a defense of the Western canon. The view of culture that emerges here is messier, and I think more interesting, one of far-flung influences brought together through contact, of innovation driven by broken traditions patched together from recovered shards. The figures who promoted this view were often unrecognized, and some remain unknown beyond a handful of specialists even today. Many were unfamiliar to me before I began to look beyond established canons and let the protagonists of this book lead me down less trodden paths and hidden byways. What I learned from them is that if we want to restrict exploitative tourism, avoid disrespectful uses of other cultures, and protect embattled traditions, we need to find a different language than that of property and ownership, one more in keeping with how culture actually works. From the handiwork of these creators, a new story of culture emerges, one of engagement across barriers of time and place, of surprising connections and subterranean influences. It's not always a pretty story, and shouldn't be presented as such, but it's the only one we've got. The history of humans as a culture-producing species. It's the story of us. Introduction. Inside the Chauvet Cave, 35,000 BCE. Long before humans appeared on Earth, the Chauvet Cave in the south of France was filled with water. Over time, the water cut deep gorges into the brittle limestone and then drained away, leaving a system of hollows perched high above the Ardèche River that began to attract visitors. For thousands of years, families of bears retreated into its deep chambers to hibernate. When bears were gone, a wolf came and left. Once, an ibex walked deep into the dark interior, jumped and landed hard, sliding into a narrow grotto. Finding itself at a dead end, it panicked, quickly retraced its steps until it had freed itself again, turned around, and finally came to a complete stop. When the bears, the wolf and the ibex had abandoned the cave for good, humans dared to enter it for the first time. They brought torches
Sample complete. Ready to continue?